instruction. You use your ARM, or not ARM, but AMD or Intel compatible Linux distribution, and you install the multi-lib and also the assembler and Netcat, which we're going to use later for making network connections, and GDB, get all those things in there, and then you can have this hello.asm, which I should have here. So if I cat it, that's your assembler program. So it has a text section and a data section. And the text section has a starting point here, which is a global variable. That's how the program starts. And then it's going to do just two system calls. System calls are int 80, and EAX determines what the system call is. So it's going to do a system call type 4 and then a system call type 1. And then I'm going to have data, which is hello world, and I think it's line feed carriage return. Might be the other way, these two characters. And this defines a variable called message, which is bytes, this many bytes. And this determines the length, which will take the current location minus the address of message. So it'll have the length of the message will appear here in a variable called len. So this is a string. This is what a string definition in C would look like in assembler. So now you just have to understand what system calls are. There's two protection rings in the processor. There's ring 0, which is kernel mode, which has complete control of the processor and can execute all instructions. And there's ring 3, which is where all the code written by the user goes. And the problem is ring 3 is limited and you cannot touch the hardware. You cannot read from the keyboard or write to the console or the network card or anything. You're not authorized to. Those are all privileged commands. So what you have to do is you have to ask the kernel to please do that for you. You cannot directly refer to any of the hardware. So you have to do these system calls to get anything done, and all your program ever is just a series of API calls on Windows or Linux. The API is your interface to get to the kernel, and the kernel does all the work, but you can't touch it directly. You just ask the kernel, please do this, please do that. And you're relying on the kernel developers to do a good job. So there are various system calls, and in this case, you see 4 is write and 1 is exit. So this is going to write out a message and then exit. And each one of them has different parameters. And so the write goes here, and here it specifies the parameters. The parameters are a device handle, file descriptor, a pointer to a buffer of characters, and then a size count. And those go in registers in a certain order, A, B, C, D. So the A is the type of call, number 4. 1 is the device. Type 1 is standard out. This is the message, pointer to the message, and this is the length of characters to print. So that's just A, B, C, D, which is kind of obvious. The 4 parameters, A to define the call, and the next 3 parameters are B, C, and D registers, EAX, EB. So that's what it does. So this is going to print hello world, and this is going to exit from the program. Exit has no other parameters, just call 1, just as long as EAX contains the exit. So that's what happens here. All right, and so you can compile that thing with NASM, which should be up here somewhere. Yeah, NASM minus ELF32 and load. You do 2 steps. You assemble it and then you link it with LD. And then you'll have an executable hello, and there it is, hello world. And so this one doesn't have a carriage return line feed, so it'll print just on one line and then have the next prompt right there. You add the carriage return line feed by adding them in the data section here by putting the comma 10, comma 13. All right, that's all that happens here. And just for theory, there's a tutorial, and you can answer a bunch of theoretical questions to understand more about assembly code, in addition to doing the hands-on part. And then you can do more hands-on parts, and what this is going to do, you have to make a program that creates this text, note the blank line at the end. And if you get it correct, when you then use Netcat to send it up to my server, the server will reply with a flag. So this is just creating an HTTP request, which is just plain text. And you have to get it exactly right and then pipe it to my server. That's what Netcat is for. And here's one where you can get a web page. And for that, you actually have to make a GET request, which looks like this. There are 3 lines, GET, host, and user agent, and then a blank line. And if you send it this way, it'll then show you a flag as well. And here's where you get to use brute force. You're going to have to try P is password 0, P is password 1, P is password 2 until you find out which password works. So you could do it with many repetitive write instructions and many copied data segments, or you could make a loop and change 1 byte of the string incrementing up, which is better. And you can eventually, when you find the right one, you'll get a flag. And there's another one here with more details. You do the kind of same thing, password followed by a single digit. On you go. All right. But here you have both the admin and the password that have a single digit. There are a total of 100 combinations. So you'll have to make 2 loops, or there are various solutions. Simplest thing is to use 2 loops, incrementing both of them. So give those things a shot. That's good for you to practice. Let me stop this one.